When visualizing your dreams, you must first think of the drive, the effort, the sacrifice, and the amount of discipline it takes to achieve these goals. But what if I told you that achieving the dream of being a boxing champion comes with dark consequences? In this episode, we're going to examine the microbial kingdom of the human body and how it relates to a fighter that is participating in the sport of boxing. The sport of boxing will test your strength, your weaknesses, your will, your toughness, even your mental health. But most of all, it tests your heart. This is part 3 of the dark truth of cutting weight in boxing.
What's the craziest thing you've ever done to make weight?
Almost died.
Wait a second. How did that happen?
I was in Texas and it was like 100 and some degrees and I still had weight to lose. I just kept working out, kept moving, not drinking no water. I just pushed my body to the limit.
Last time on the dark truth of cutting weight in boxing, we covered how a boxer being severely dehydrated due to an extreme weight cut can dramatically impact a fighter's punch resistance, his reaction time, and his overall strength. But there is something even more sinister that negatively impacts the health of a boxer. And it is not only cutting weight and severely dehydrating the body, but it is also blunt force trauma and the intake of toxic foods like processed sugar.
I don't get no red Kool-Aid. I'm mad. I go in the house mad. Listen, James, my chef, took away all the sweets, took all the everything. Can't drink no Gatorade, can't drink nothing. I got me some red Kool-Aid.
When cutting out sweets and junk food, a fighter feels deprived of these things, and during their off time, they tend to overindulge, which makes them blow up in weight. It makes it a lot harder to make weight when it comes to a fight camp.
Yeah, you know. What a Jolly Rancher Troy's. The King Pack. You always go king.
And I'm sure everyone is familiar with the term, I have a sweet tooth. But do you really have a sweet tooth? Or is it something else that is in play, causing these cravings? The truth is, there are entities that live inside the body that feed off of this processed sugar. So when you're having these cravings, it is not you that has them, but these microbial entities amongst the microbial kingdom. Bacteria pleomorphosizing into parasites. Most people think that parasites come into the body by external means, but this couldn't be further from the truth. The fact of the matter is, bacteria in the body is there to neutralize and eat acids in the body. Whenever a person intakes too much acid, here comes the bacteria to neutralize and dissolve this acid. But when there's an overloading of acids in the body, these bacteria have to become something else, and they pleomorphosize into these ghastly creatures we call today parasites.
Yes, you gotta put down those sugars. I know that they addictive, but it ain't feeding you. It is feeding the Candida albicans because they love fermented food. You're not even feeding you when you eat that stuff. You are killing your vehicle, which your consciousness is driving around in reality in every time you do that. Just say no.
And the more parasites grow in the body, the more acids they want to feast on. So they'll give you these cravings of these processed sugars and want you to keep partaking in this carbonic acid, your uric acid, lactic acid, so that it can feed these entities. What the body truly needs is simple sugars. Processed sugars is what you call a complex sugar or a polysaccharide. Poly means many, and this is complex to the body, So the body needs a monosaccharide. Mono meaning one or singular, a simple sugar. One might add, don't fruits have sugar in it? But the sugar that it disperses is a lot different. It's like someone owing you $1,000 and they're paying you $1 at a time when you're eating fruits. But when you're eating processed sugar, it's like they throw it all in at one time in the bloodstream. And this is harmful because sugar is not only an acid for these parasites to feed on, but it is also a neurotoxin and can affect the brain negatively. So ridding the body of these acids, not feeding and starving out these parasites would be the ideal thing to do. And I'm sure you're familiar with the term, the devil made me do it. But this brings more context to that statement. Now I'm going to show you examples of how parasites can control the mind and control your cravings. Here's a clip from the movie Osmosis Jones to give you further context on the matter at hand.
Sir, you can't go into override without a vote from City Council.
Voice manual control on.
Hey, that's only for emergencies.
On second thought, perhaps I'll take a cold pill.
But as you can see, these pleomorphic microorganisms can control the mind and the body. But one might ask, what does this have to do with the sport of boxing, and how does it relate to a fighter? Well, when a boxer is training for a fight and he's cutting extreme weight, and he severely dehydrates the body, he has a decreased level of CSF, cerebral spinal fluid, which is the jelly-like substance that cushions the brain when a fighter is taking blunt force trauma. And with the lack thereof, can make the brain more susceptible to knocking around and severely injuring or killing the person. But it's also a breeding ground for parasites.
Work we do and how much stress we put our body under to get ready for a fight. Even train for 8 weeks, get strong, get fast, spar, get mentally prepared. You gotta lose weight. That's the worst part about boxing for me.
The losing weight?
Losing weight.
Really?
I swear to God.
Here in this interview, Lamont Roach speaks on the strains and how hard it is to cut weight and what it does to deplete the muscle mass in the body.
The last 5 pounds are probably like, with the dehydration and everything, I lose probably body mass and it's normal. Body mass and muscle mass for sure.
When I was 165 pounds in the amateurs, I was playing football. I was squatting 400 pounds. When I turned pro, I moved down to 47. I was trying to break up my muscle to get to 47. I was trying to get there because that was the marquee division in boxing. You become a champion at 47.
So why was Showtime's Shawn Porter never considered a weight bully when he moved from 154 pounds down to 147? Is it because of his height? Him being only 5'6" in stature? So tell me, are we picking and choosing now? Is it about height, or is it about
It's part
weight?
of boxing. It's a part of making weight. You're gonna be dehydrated. You're gonna feel weaker than you normally is. And
Terrence Crawford has 3 hours into the weigh-in and 2.8 pounds to lose. As you can see, he is depleting and destroying his body to make the 135-pound limit. But this is the sacrifices of a champion. The very thing that made Terrence Crawford the pound-for-pound great that he is today.
I want you to get in and then start cranking it as hot as you can tolerate.
But I want to end our conversation of weight bullies with the most recent example. Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia. They fought April 20th, 2024, and we have not stopped talking about it since then. From missing weight to the use of PEDs, this fight has been nothing less than controversial. But I would like to stay on the topic of weight. Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia set out to fight at the contracted weight of 140 pounds. There had been doubts and whispers that Ryan Garcia may not make weight, and that turned out to be the case, as Ryan Garcia missed weight by 3.5 pounds. The fight could have easily been called off, but Devin Haney went on with the fight, accepting payoff for the additional pounds over the weight limit. So Devin, knowing that a lot was riding on this fight, kept the show going. But Haney didn't actually make weight easy himself. In fact, it's rumored that Devin Haney had to strip down naked to make the 140-pound weight division on the nose. And at the weigh-in, he looked weak and subdued. His voice was raspy, and he even stumbled off the scale. All clear indications of a bad weight cut. So now we have a case of a fighter that didn't have to cut down to 140 pounds and one that did. But what does this mean in terms of how the fight could play out? Well, we do know that Devin Haney has struggled to make weight for years, mostly due to him blowing up in weight in between fights, along with his natural body's growth. We have covered how bad weight cuts can affect the anatomy as well as the mental of the boxer, and how they are depleted of nutrients, minerals, electrolytes, severely weakened to make the weight. And then they rehydrate 15 or 20 pounds. This is the body searching for the weight that feels most comfortable, which is why it is not wise to blow up in weight in between fights, because your body will feel robbed and want that weight back. Though what it really wants is vital nutrients, minerals, and electrolytes. And you can never get back what you lost in a weight cut in 24 hours. But let me be clear, I'm not giving Haney an excuse for why he lost, because he made a lot of errors outside of the ring as well as inside of the ring. Although the facts are that Ryan Garcia did not have to deplete himself in cutting weight. And if we look at their frames, Ryan Garcia is already the bigger man. So what does this mean in terms of equality? Is this an even playing field? Not only is Ryan Garcia bigger, he has a head start in the rehydration process, meaning he will get to his body's optimum form quicker, while Haney may not even get close to his body's memory form. And it didn't help the fact that Ryan Garcia admitted to missing weight on purpose to gain an advantage. And remember, dehydrating yourself lowers your punch resistance, your reaction time, and your overall energy levels. So from the evidence presented, it wasn't an even playing field in this regard. Nor does it mean Devin Haney would have won had Ryan Garcia made weight and depleted himself also. These are simply the scientific facts of the subject at hand. But some of the more shocking evidence is yet to be spoken of, which is the fact that in the weigh-in that we witnessed was the ceremonial weigh-in, meaning that they already weighed in hours before we actually seen them. And a telltale sign of this is the fact that they both were wearing pants while weighing in. And Devin Haney looks starched, but Ryan Garcia looks fresh, throwing combinations, yelling with a battle cry. Truth is, they have both been rehydrating since they weighed in. But Haney still looks drained at the ceremonial weigh-in. And by the time they both already gained at least 2 or 3 pounds, meaning Ryan Garcia was a welterweight at the time of the ceremonial
Ryan
weigh-in.
looked massive. And then when you come in 3.5 pounds over, that's when you have to protect your fighter. They do a new deal, which I wasn't involved with Golden Boy, on the weight. The first thing you do is you make Ryan Garcia weigh in on Saturday morning. You give him the ability to just rehydrate wherever he wants to get to. The guy's missed weight by 3.5 pounds. The fight's off. You got to re-weigh tomorrow, so you don't rehydrate. You make him sweat overnight. You make him panic overnight. The no rehydration clause at that point, when he comes in heavy, is a schoolboy mistake. Those guys are in the ring. I'm looking over at the size of Ryan Garcia. He looked like a middleweight. But he had the ability to hurt Devin with every shot that he landed. I mean, then I started thinking about how well did you make your weight here? He's always tight the weight. I mean, how he made, 35, Devin, for so long?
Here's boxing champion Shakur Stevenson's take on the Haney versus Garcia
cheating
fight.
by being 3.2 pounds heavier during their weigh-in. Shakur Stevenson said it was quote-unquote crazy that Ryan Garcia did not make weight, and that it was completely unfair how Ryan Garcia played Devin Haney into draining himself. Shakur Stevenson also claimed that based on how they looked, Ryan Garcia weighed in at least 174 pounds compared to Devin Haney, who based on his estimate was only 162 pounds after rehydrating.
And to get back on the topic of parasites in the body of a boxer and how it hinders their health physically as well as neurologically. But there's a particular parasite I would like to place our attention on, and that is toxoplasma. Some studies have linked the brain parasite Toxoplasma gondii with an increased risk of Parkinson's disease. T. gondii is an intracellular parasite that can alter dopamine metabolism and persist in neurons. Parkinson's disease is associated with reduced dopamine levels in the brain. But some studies have shown that T. gondii can increase dopamine levels in infected hosts. Additionally, the parasite can alter neurotransmitter signals in tissues, and its genome upregulates tyrosine, hydroxylase, an enzyme that produces dopamine. And as we all know, Muhammad Ali, the greatest of all time, he suffered with Parkinson's disease for years before he passed. Did this parasite, toxoplasma, play a part in the demise of one of our history's greats? As I said before, without the barrier of the cerebrospinal fluid, these parasites have free pathways straight to the brain. So are boxers more susceptible to these parasites because they stay in a dehydrated state more than the average person? Take a look at this clip from ProBox TV, where Dr. Corey Peacock, a fighting science expert, explains the dangers of cutting weight and the advantages given to those that don't have to cut as much weight.
Seeing the weight, though, there are a lot of different impairments that you are going to see in terms of executive function. You're going to see decision-making being rapidly decreased, reaction time being rapidly decreased, even just your dexterity and your ability to be precise and precision in terms of your striking and those kind of things, you're extremely impaired, especially going through that dehydration process.
So a bad weight cut is really going to hurt your performance.
Absolutely. And you know, when you really look at like percentages of a weight cut, what I always see is this. You know, you have these normal ranges, right? Where I always kind of give it the 7 to 10%. Where realistically, when you look at sort of male fighters, you're going to see them probably the norm being around 8% that they're going to be losing throughout that fight week, especially that last 72 hours. In terms of their rebound, when you actually look at the research data, you're going to see them probably upwards of about 13%. So typically a fighter that does this weight cut, quote unquote, correctly, they're going to typically rebound about 5%. So if they lose 8, they're going to gain 13. So you see that. Now, when you see a fighter that does it, quote unquote, the wrong way, and they're losing drastic amounts of weight, let's say they're losing up there in the 13%, typically you only see a rebound of 11 to 13%. So if you look at that in terms of like relative to size, the people that lose or cut weight better actually regain weight better. The people that lose large amounts, they're going to not gain as much because you have so much physiological distress going on. So, I mean, it really is a huge factor.
So was Devin Haney weight drained? Did the 3.5 pounds from Ryan Garcia play a part in the outcome of the fight? Timothy Bradley had a very good question to ask to Dr. Corey Peacock when he asked him, did the 3 pounds over the weight limit play a part in the fight? And this is what Dr. Peacock had to say.
Ryan Garcia and those 3 pounds that he didn't want to make. Do you think those 3 pounds added going into the fight? Did you think that helped him in any way?
Absolutely. It was a huge advantage. The most physiological stress is going to come from those last, in his case, 3 pounds. So you know, in his case, he was able to regain weight to a higher degree than his opponent. He was able to get back to what I would call homeostasis, or just normal, in a quicker fashion. there's a lot less suffering, and realistically, the physiological impair that his opponent was enduring for probably 24 upwards of 36 hours, he didn't have to deal with that. That wasn't a part of his fight, fight day.
Plus the enhancements.
What kind of guy did you are?
Look, try to explain to people who have never fought before. I said, oh, why do they cut all that weight? You're asking people who take massive risks for a living to not take one more risk. And they're always gonna say yes to that. How do you, and Doc, please, both you, this idea that, hey, you shouldn't do that. I'm a fighter, I don't care. Yeah, I've seen people on the floor crying because they're so dehydrated, but...
Fighters put their lives on the line, not only in the ring, but in the training camps and in the weight cutting process. So the next time that we're looking to criticize a boxer, let's just take into consideration all of the sacrifices one must make to compete at this level in order to feed his or her family. And yes, some fighters are weight bullies, looking to seek a physical advantage over an opponent. But for the most part, it's all about fighting where the money is. So whatever the hot division is, the best fighters will want to compete there.
Cutting, it's a weird experience because not just me, I've seen fighters not get delirious but start saying things that they wouldn't normally say.
Because you're close to death.
You see the light.
It sounds ridiculous to say that. For someone who doesn't understand what fighters are going through, you go, oh, you're being hyperbolic, but not really. If you keep going for a few more hours, you'll die.
Particular risks for boxers?
Boxers are, if they are cutting weight, they're also about to participate in a sport where there's a specific and significant potential injury to the brain. So you dehydrate, especially very quickly, you throw that whole system out of whack. We don't think that you can cut weight, put that weight back on within 24 hours and your brain be functioning completely normally.
So you know what